Now that's something that always happens when you're out in the field. Stan, I'll have to call you back. I'm busy right now. All right, bye. Now these look really good too. Beautiful. Nice set of roots, very healthy. So my first exposure to raspberries were with a company of Nooksack Farms, and they later became known as Riverberry, and that would have been in the early 80s. I had run a potato farm prior to that, and Raider Farms had bought that out, and I stayed there for a few months and then moved on and started with Riverberry and planted one of their first fields. So it would have been one of the first biggest plantings in Whatcom County at that time, around 1988. The co-op people came and offered me the job, and I have been there ever since March of 1988. So 34 years spent looking at these fields, working with raspberry growers. Like I said, being there from the very beginning when raspberries took off and became a major crop, not only in this community, but in this state and in the nation. So for me, every morning I would step out from my place on the Bob Hall Road, and there was blueberries behind me, raspberries in front of me, and I was at work within 5 seconds and driving through the fields. And this was my office. I spent very little time inside. I spent most of my time and career outside, looking at fields, trying to find the problems, and so this is where people would find me, and this is where I spent most of my time. Here you can see in this particular field we have the tape is raised with an extra wire so we can see the emitters. When I first started, there was no drip irrigation, and proud to be a part of that, and developed that with a number of people. Everybody had been using the big irrigation gun at that time, and when we went to this, the efficiency of the water went from a gun was probably 60–65% efficient as far as watering to 90% efficiency with drip tape. Then we developed tanks and fertigation and injection pumps so we can put things into the tape while we're irrigating to fertigate, and then you might see some applications as early as March through that tape. The big thing that drip has done is applied that water specific to an area of where the roots are, and you're not irrigating out into the roadways or over the top and getting the canopy wet. So we've been able to address a more efficiency with the water down into the roots, and less moisture up on the bush, so the fruit itself doesn't get moldy. So we've been able to eliminate some applications of fungicides that way, and concentrate on the water down below. To come up with solutions for growers was the thing that really drove me in my career. To find something that was going to work for them, where they were satisfied that the problem was being addressed, but just the reward that they were getting better and better and better was all that I could ask for out of that. And they were successful and we were successful all at the same time. So it was industry driving industry. And you could see that when other people from other countries would come and visit us, meaning because this is one of the main centers for red raspberries in the world, that they took interest into everything we were doing, everything different we were doing. And you know, they were going to try and copy it, but it takes a group feeding off of one another to make something like this happen, and I would, like I said, I was invited to sit in the front row, you might say, and be a part of it, and that's what that was my reward in coming up with solutions for the growers.
For Steve, I think the part that impressed me the most, the part that I appreciated the most about Steve wasn't his extensive knowledge in the raspberry world, but was more his willingness to share it. Steve was, you didn't have to be around Steve very long to get a sense of his passion for the industry and his desire to do everything he could to sustain and enhance berry production.
The thing that we always appreciated about him was that he was available, and you didn't have to ask him to go out and monitor fields and things of this nature. He was out ahead of time. And the other part of Steve was his relationship with the people that he worked with, and he had a great sense of humor, and that every now and then he would call me and say, "Hey, we need to go to lunch with Darryl." Knowing full well that it was his expectation was for Darryl and I to entertain him.
He did a lot of things behind the scenes that most people don't know about. He helped line up research, funding, money to help find solutions to pest issues that we had. He always seemed to have a guy who he knew that could help us out if we ran into something we couldn't figure out. You know, I think one thing I owe my career to Steve Midboe. There's a few people that have helped me out get this far, and he's definitely one of them. And I think I'm not the only one. There's several other guys that the next generation owes a lot to Steve Midboe.
Hey Steve, I'd like to thank you for all the help you've given the industry. You're always there for us and helping us solve our problems and giving us recommendations. Also, the training you gave the guys at the co-op, the young guns that are coming up and handling things now, they're doing a tremendous job, and you have to be proud of that.
You know, I've said it before that relationships are what drive everything in business, and for me, having that relationship with the grower and even getting to know his family and then seeing the generations that would come. I've gone through in my career, I think, 3 generations. I didn't stick around for the 4th. I figured it was time for me to move on. But just that community of spirit and the generations of people taking over for their father, who took over from his father, and seeing that in families, it really makes a family deal in this community. When you look at the growers that do it for a livelihood and for a living, and they keep their family involved, and for me to be able to work with all those generations was highly rewarding.